Hi there, it's Dr. Patricia Mills. I'm so excited to be here with you today presenting on this very important topic, which is cancer prevention. And this has really been coming across my radar a lot lately. I have a lot of friends and families and friends and family of friends and family that are coming to me and I'm being made aware of diagnoses of cancer. And I know that it's not just that there's more people in this world and therefore there's more cancer. We actually are seeing more cancer diagnoses pop up. More people are getting diagnosed with cancer. And I think the recent statistic is that 1 in 3 people will have some kind of cancer diagnosis within their lifetime. And that's just unconscionable. So we need to turn the story around. So if you're joining me for this Facebook Live, please put in your name and where you're joining me in from. I'm going to keep an eye on the comments because I would love to see that. Hoping that the comments are working. If not, I will go back in afterwards and answer any questions that you might have. If I'm not answering your questions, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It might just be that the comments option is not working on this Facebook Live, which happens sometimes, unfortunately. So as an introduction, Dr. Patricia Mills, I'm a medical doctor. I specialized in physical medicine and rehabilitation, practicing in Canada. And then for various personal reasons and that of family members getting sick, I went beyond Western medicine, what I was taught, into more up-to-date research, different areas of research. And now I am a health transformation expert dedicated to helping women like you improve your health so you're not just surviving, but you're thriving. And I think that is so needed in this world these days, right? So today we're going to be talking about cancer. Now, the interesting thing to know about cancer is that when they did research on like the genetics of cancer, when they did like the genetic, when they did the human DNA project, I'm blanking on the name of it, but they went through and they sequenced all of the DNA of cancers, right? So when they studied cancer, they realized that they were hoping when they researched cancer that they would find that there was a lot of genetic predispositions for cancer. And what they found actually was that when they looked at all of the different cancers, let's say they took like people with like pancreatic cancer, or breast cancer, or gut cancer, and they analyzed the DNA of all of these people with these cancers in these organs, they found that no one really had the same DNA expression. It didn't like show up like this one gene was affected and that's the gene that was affected through all of these cancers. And that, with very few exceptions, like there's a few cancers like the BRCA gene, the one that Angelina Jolie had. And so there's some cancers that are very strongly genetically determined. But even then, even those strongly genetically determined cancers, it's not like it's 100% certainty that you're going to get cancer if you have that DNA. So there's clearly an interaction between the environment and the DNA for even those very strong genetically determined cancers, and the rest, which are like 95% of the other cancers, it's turning out that it's more environmental. So it's something about the environment is interacting with the DNA and other factors in the cell where the cell becomes a cancerous cell. There are other factors other than DNA, than genetics, that are causing these cells to mutate into cancer cells. And they're finding that it's things like the fuel that the cell is using. For example, sugar for fuel. These cancer cells love sugar. I mean, all of our cells love sugar, but these cancer cells really love sugar. They steal all of the sugar from our diet and they feed on it. And that's one of the reasons why people who have cancer, eventually they become very wasted and thin, is because the cancer cells are like stealing the sugar to use the sugar for their own energetic needs. So I'm going to give you 3 tips today on how to prevent cancer from happening, okay? And I'm going to tie it back into the fact that it's not genetically predetermined. You have a lot of power in terms of what you can do to prevent cancer that lies outside of the realm of your DNA, even if you have a strong family history of cancer. And this is why this is so empowering. So again, if you're watching, put in your name, where you're calling in from, so I can say hi, and feel free to ask questions as this progresses. Okay, so I mentioned that sugar feeds cancer cells. And one thing that's important to know is that the source of where the sugar comes from is important. So the body takes your carbohydrates, your sources of carbohydrates, and breaks it down into sugar. However, the source of your carbohydrate really matters for the amount and availability of that sugar within your body. So for example, if you're getting your carbohydrates from refined flours and refined sugars, so pastas and refined flour breads and pastries and donuts and cookies and crackers, pizzas, all of those things, what happens is, to make those things, is you take a whole grain, which is not refined, it's a whole grain, and then they take it and they use machines and they chop it very, very, very fine into a fine powder, like a dust, And then when you, what happens is, when you bind that together with like glues, like gluten, one of the reasons that people really like to use wheat is because it's very sticky. And so they'll even increase the gluten content to make it more sticky, into a sticky kind of dough. Or they'll use things like preservatives or chemicals or emulsifiers to create that kind of like binding. The thing is, when you eat those products, the sugar content in your blood all of a sudden shoots up because it's very quickly broken down by the body, quickly digested. So it's like a shot of sugar into the blood, and all of a sudden you have this massive spike in blood sugar. Contrast that to if you were to actually eat the whole grain. So instead of eating the rice flour, you ate the whole rice. So you take your rice, you soak it, which you're supposed to do with rice, and then you rinse it really well until it comes out clear, so there's none of that fine dusty white powder that rice can come with. And then you cook that rice. That's a whole grain. It takes a while for the body to break it down, and then you have a slow release of sugar into the body, okay? So a slow release equals slow, well-timed distribution through the body. So you don't get like massive shots of sugar going in and feeding, like excessively feeding things like cancer cells, okay? Because your body, we always have cancer cells in our body. It's not that we want to like not have any cancer cells. It's normal to have cancer cells in the body, but you want the body to shut it down quickly. And one way to shut it down quickly is to never provide it so much fuel that it's going to have a lot of fuel to feed on, right? Excessive fuel to feed on. So you want to keep your blood sugar stable in your body for that reason. So what does that is the whole grains, right? Like the quinoas and that sort of quinoas, the millets, the rice, the teff, the oats, and your vegetables. Your vegetables are a wonderful source of slow sugar, is what I call it, okay? Slow carbs. So your body takes those plants, and it has to break it down and slowly release that sugar into the bloodstream. The other thing about eating, so the tip number one, okay, is you want to look at your diet and see where are you having a lot of fast carbs, like the refined flours and refined sugars, and you want to replace it with your slow carbs. So instead of like cereal in the morning, you have like an overnight soaked oats in the morning. You have an Ezekiel bread, which is a bread where they take the grains, they sprout the grains. So it's not even a flour bread, although it looks like it. It's kind of interesting. And so that's a whole grain bread that hasn't been refined, right? And then you want to eat your vegetables, and quantity matters. When they look at research, it's very, very healthful to eat between 8 to 10 cups of vegetables a day, vegetables and fruits, but primarily vegetables. Why is that? Well, another thing about cancer that you need to know about is that damage to the cell, right, to each cell in your body occurs due to exposure from toxins. And what are toxins? Toxins are things like chemicals from what you put on your skin, like your skin products if you're not being careful with that, what you're breathing in, plastics like BPA that you might be drinking from your water bottle by accident that you're not aware of. Don't drink from plastic, drink from glass or aluminum or stainless steel. our estrogens that are broken down. If we're not eating enough fiber, our toxic estrogen levels can build up because estrogen is excreted through the gallbladder into the gut, and then the gut needs to have enough fiber from plants to bind that excess estrogen and pull it out of the body, like you poop it out. If you don't have enough plants going through your digestive system with their natural fibers, when that gallbladder squeezes out its like toxic bile, like it's part of the bile's function is to break down your fats, and the other part of the bile function is like a dumping ground for toxins, and it dumps that into the gut. There needs to be fiber to like hold on to those toxins, and then you need to poop it out. Okay, so the tip number 1 is you want to eat plants, and you want to eat enough of them, about 8 to 10 cups a day, and I would say 70% cooked and 30% raw. You should not be having all raw foods, and cooked foods are better for absorption. The body doesn't have to work as hard to break it down. There's lots of research showing that an all raw foods diet is not good for the system. It's very hard on the digestive system over time. You might feel great at first, but over time you're not going to feel so hot. Okay? But having 30% just gives you those live raw enzymes from some of your food. So start your meal off with like a little salad or some carrots, and then eat your cooked vegetables. So 8 to 10 plates a day, that looks like, if you were to take your dinner plate, it would be like, 3/4 of your plate would be covered with cooked vegetables. And what that means is that if you're eating that way, it's very unlikely that you're going to go hungry, because you're going to have 3/4 of your plate cooked vegetables. You're going to put your olive oil, your sea salt, which is healthful, not table salt, which is toxic, but sea salt like Himalayan salt or Celtic salt. And then maybe a squeeze of lemon or some apple cider vinegar, like the the acid fat salt is like, that you want to have those in good proportions to make the meal tasty. And the other quarter of your meal might be something like, if you're vegetarian or vegan, like some kind of legumes, or if you're not, you would have some kind of high quality protein, like a pastured chicken or a grass-fed beef, and I'm gonna have grass-finished beef or lamb, and my third tip will refer to why I'm making these specific recommendations, right? So quantity of plants in your diet really matters. It just absolutely matters, right? To pull out those toxins that would otherwise bind that would otherwise not get out in your poop, and it would stay in your body. So I've actually kind of given you 2 for 1, like switch out your refined flours and sugars for plants like grains and vegetables, whole grains and vegetables, and make sure you get the quantity of that right. Okay, any questions so far as to what I've been saying, please put it in the comments. I would love to answer them for you. All right, so hopefully it's been clear, but if not, feel free to ask. Okay, and I'm just checking my comments here. Perfect. So tip number 2 is that when we're dialing in on the plants, diversity matters. What does that mean? So one research study that I found to be absolutely fascinating is they took a group of people and they've randomly divided them to 2 groups, and they gave both groups a diet to follow. And the diet was they both had to eat 8 to 10 cups of vegetables a day, like servings of vegetables and fruits a day. One group, however, was told to increase their diversity. So they had to target, for example, like more than 25 different kinds of plants. So, like daikon, radishes, carrots that were orange, like there's purple carrots, there's yellow carrots, and then they would have to have, like if they had apples, they would have to have like an ambrosia apple, a gala apple, Granny Smith apple. If they were having broccoli, they would have a broccolini, a regular broccoli. If they were cauliflower, they would try to go for the white cauliflower and the purple cauliflower. If they were having beans, they would have like the green beans or the snap peas. And so they were building in a lot of diversity. So they had like many, many different kinds of plants, whereas the other group was told to just choose from like 5 different kinds. So they would have like broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and cabbage and something else, and that's what they would stick with. So 8 to 10 cups in both groups, but this group was told to have a lot of diversity. And didn't you know, they studied the DNA on this one, and they saw that the group that had the diversity in their plants had less DNA damage than the group that didn't. And so just so you know, our DNA is being constantly damaged and repaired, and it's that balance between damage and repair. You want to have obviously less damage and more repair compared to less damage, right? So you're always like keeping up with your DNA damage. Well, this group that had diversity had less DNA damage. Why? Well, one of the interesting things about plants is that we have what we call micronutrients, and then phytochemicals. So macronutrients is like protein, fat, and carbs, right? Like if you look at the nutritional label, it always says that, right? Micronutrients is vitamins and minerals. So vitamins A, D, E, K, vitamin C, all that kind of stuff, right? And the minerals like magnesium, zinc, all that kind of zinc, potassium, chloride, boron, all those minerals, which you may or may not get on the food label. But then there's the phytochemicals, which is like the pigments that actually color the vegetables, right? So the purple color and the blue color and the green color and the red color and the yellow color, they're called non-nutritive because they don't provide you with like energy. But what they do is they are antioxidants. They fight DNA damage, right? They control, they kind of like put out the fire that is made in your body from creating energy. When we burn sugar for fuel, that actually results in what, like, you could think of it as like when you burn diesel, it releases like exhaust. That's what happens in our cells. We release like exhaust in our cells, and we need those phytonutrients to go out and clean up the exhaust and put out the fire that's caused by that kind of burning of the fuel. By the way, when you burn fat for fuel, you don't get the exhaust. It's a much cleaner energy source, and fats and cancer cells can't use fat for fuel as well as they use sugar for fuel. So that's another reason why some people will go on something like the ketogenic diet, which is high fat, moderate protein, low carbs, is because they're trying to starve the cancer cells. Okay, that's why. And the cool thing is that vegetables, because of that slow release factor, doesn't have a lot of carbs relative to the refined fast carbs that I've already talked about. And the fiber in the gut actually gets digested down at the level of the gut and gets turned into a fat that's very helpful called short chain fatty acids, otherwise known as ketones, ketogenic diet. So eating plants also helps provide you with the clean fuel in your body that will feed your healthy cells and not feed your cancer cells as well. So diversity is the second tip, okay? Eat plants in good quantity. Diversity is the second tip. The third tip is quality matters. So when we grow vegetables, we know that when we add pesticides like glyphosate, right, which you find in Roundup, which is what's used in 90% of pesticides in North America. Did you know that the producers of this product were successfully sued by people who were working with this product and developed cancer? Okay, so the difference is that we are not working with this product, but when you eat a product that was grown with pesticides, you are basically exposing yourself to a cancer-causing chemical. So you are eating your 8 to 10 vegetables a day, like really being attentive to that, and then you're exposing yourself to a cancer-causing chemical. So I would much rather you spend the money on organic fruits and vegetables and not buy fancy supplements. First, focus on the organic fruits and vegetables, and once you've got that dialed in, if you're finding that you want to up-level your health, then you spend the money on the fancy stuff. But you need to have your fiber, and by the way, the powdered fiber is not as effective as the real fiber. So while for some people who have a problem with their digestion, where they have such digestive issues that they can't even like break down plant food, they get very bloated, very uncomfortable, very full very quickly, and we need to, but they're wasting away, so we need to properly feed them, then yes, I agree that there are some powdered fruits and vegetable supplements that can be helpful. However, for most people, I would say that is not necessary, so long as you're using organic fruits and vegetables and you're cooking your foods. Remember, at least 70% of your food's cooked, so you can get that digested down properly. And if you are in that camp that's having problems with your digestion, then you need to work with someone like myself or another healthcare professional who can help you heal your gut, because your gut should be able to tolerate plants, fruits, and vegetables in that quantity. But please don't go from 0 to 8 to 10. Do like 1 cup and then 2 cups, wait a few days and increase slowly. If it's too much, back down again. You will overwhelm your system if you go from 0 to hero, right? So you got to kind of build it up slowly. So, and when you're like, well, I can't afford to buy all organic, well, look up what's called the Dirty Dozen, okay? And if you go to ewg.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, ewg.org, they have a list of every year. They analyze the fruits and the vegetables and they see which ones have the highest pesticide content and which have the lowest. For example, avocado is low because it stays on the skin and you open it up, so you just wash the skin, open it up and eat the inside. It's not going to be a huge issue, but the big offenders are things like berries, strawberries and blackberries and blueberries. And here you are thinking, well, these are very healthful foods for me, and I would say it is, as long as it isn't coming in with bad company, right? And with those ones, it doesn't matter how much you wash it because it's in the skin. The skin is so delicate, it gets absorbed into the actual fruit. So you really want to make sure that you're putting your money where it deserves to go. And this is definitely one from a cancer prevention perspective. Definitely very important to do. Okay, so I'm just seeing that if there's any questions so far. No questions so far, so that's great. I'm going to give you a 4th tip. This one a lot of people are not going to want to hear, and you might even want to like hold it against me because you're not going to want to hear this, but I have to tell you because it is just so key. So there are 3 known, so 60 to 70% of cancers are from lifestyle. Okay, what are the top 3? The top 3 that we know of is tobacco, which we all know, asbestos, and the 3rd one is alcohol. Alcohol, all right? It is a level 1 carcinogen by the World Health Organization, meaning that it has been directly linked to cancer. There is no doubt. Every cancer, and the top ones are breast cancer and colon cancer, okay? And the researchers, if you dive into this research, they will say that when it comes to cancer prevention, there is no healthy amount. Even 1 glass a day can increase your risk beyond not having it. So it's not that for each additional glass, your risk goes up exponentially. So how do I do this? So what I do is I drink socially. So like, maybe on a Friday or a Saturday, no more than 2 days a week. And I always have my drink on a full stomach, because part of the damage is when you have it on an empty stomach, it goes and it kind of damages like the lining of the gut, hence the colon effects. Okay, it's a toxin. It's a toxin. It does come with some helpful things like resveratrol, but it seems that the health benefits of the resveratrol, you would need to have to actually have massive health benefits, you would have to have hundreds of cups for the resveratrol, but then you get massive damage. So for the damage that you get, the health benefits, it's better to get that from a pill. It's better to take a resveratrol supplement than it is to drink your wine for it, especially because now we have so many things loading like loading the balance on the cancer side, that, you know, having the alcohol. And I also think that, I know that a lot of our alcohol is not organic, it's sprayed. And remember, those are the ones where it sinks into the grape. And so maybe it's not even the alcohol that's a problem. It might be what the alcohol is coming with these days, because in the Mediterranean, they didn't used to spray their crops, and they had no preservatives to, because they would literally go from the crop into the bottle and then to the table, and you would drink it. So as soon as they have to ship it over to North America or ship it around the world, they add preservatives, and that's when it's probably, like, I think it's probably that's damaging our bodies rather than the actual alcohol itself, although it's hard to say because no one's ever teased that out. So if you're going to drink alcohol, get the good stuff, get organic, you know, or get it from a country that you know doesn't use spray, and in small amounts of, you know, a couple times a week at most for like social occasions. I think gone are the days where we can safely say that having a drink a day is okay, especially for women. We women are so sensitive to these things. So this is something that, you know, I had to share with you. I didn't feel right not sharing it with you, and I know this information, and a lot of people don't know that alcohol causes cancer. And whenever they've tried to like do campaigns around that, the alcohol companies, like they lobby very strongly against it, and they have a lot of money. And so unfortunately it's something that's been blocked at that level. So I'm here to tell you now, be very mindful, especially if you have a strong family history of cancer, and if you're a woman and you're worried about breast cancer. Okay. Now, if you like this information and you want to learn more from me over time, join my Facebook group, Wild Wisdom for Women, with Dr. Patricia Mills, MD. And very timely, next week, I'm having a free 5-day challenge called the Rainbow Diet, where I go in much deeper into the science, and I teach you about all the different plant pigments and what they do in the body and how to incorporate it into your life, and tips like, oh, I don't have access to fresh vegetables where I live. Well, there's all of these things that you can do to mitigate that. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I love to throw in extra information as it comes up in my mind. And so you'll have 5 days of me presenting on information, and we'll have fun prizes. And it's a great community of women in there. So I put it in the events discussion for you to see more information about it. And if you follow Instagram, you can find me at dr.patriciamills, Dr. Patricia Mills, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you ever want to work with me, reach out. I do have private programs, which is one-on-one and group programs for women. And I hope that you found this helpful. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, or night, depending on when you caught this. And Josie, thank you for your comments. I'm grateful that you thought these were great points, and hopefully you'll find it helpful and easily and immediately actionable. So have a wonderful day, ladies. Bye.